Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the Apple TV show called Disclaimer. Disclaimer is a 2024 limited series directed by Alfonso Cuarón, starring Cate Blanchett, Alfonso Cuarón, and Kevin Kline. This show is also based off the novel with the same title, Disclaimer.
She needed to feel it. She needed to suffer, as I had.
Quick disclaimer for the show, disclaimer and spoiler alert. I am going to be talking about sexual violence and sexual assault in this show. This show personally helped me a lot process things that happened in my own life, but that might not be the same for you. So just keep yourself safe, take care of yourself, and thank you so much for watching. So episode 1 of Disclaimer. Episode 1 of Disclaimer starts with an opening shot of Jonathan and his girlfriend, or this girl that he brought on holiday with, and they're filming an SEX scene. And when you're first watching it, you just think that they're like two horny teenagers or two horny young adults, having fun. When you rewatch the show, or when you are giving more context to the show, then it seems a little bit more darker, and there's definitely more nuance into that scene. Then we are introduced to Catherine Ravenscraft, played by Cate Blanchett, and she's like a documentary filmmaker or a journalist or something, and she's very well known within the show. And you are made to feel like she's kind of like a little bit cold, maybe out of touch a little bit, like you're not meant to like her. And then Robert is her husband, and you kind of see their marital dynamic, that they're a little bit distant, and they love each other, but there's like a little bit of strain. And that strain, I think, is because that Catherine doesn't believe that she's a good mother. She has like some issues with her son, and her son Nicholas is revealed to have like some substance abuse problems that are later talked about throughout the show and in the book. Then we are introduced to Stephen Brigstock, and I don't think his wife comes up. Maybe his wife comes up. I don't know. But Stephen Brigstock is the old man guy, and he's great. Like great acting, great acting. And so he is a professor at this school, and he, I guess, teaches like an all boys school. Maybe, I don't know. And he has some issues. I will say, if you read the book, they do address the PEDO storyline, like the B plot, like the little thing, because he isn't. That is a way that they are, how do I explain this? That's a way that I feel like you are introduced to how he is grieving. The perception of his grief is that he's being creepy to boys, when it's really that his son died and that he doesn't know how to like handle that. Well, he is not a PEDO in the show or in the book. That is just a perception that is placed onto him. And so I think the show does a really good job of talking about how women are perceived with their grieving trauma, and how men are perceived with their grieving trauma, with the disposition of Catherine and Stephen. Also in episode 1, Catherine, that is when she receives the book that was written by Nancy, Stephen's wife, and she believes like someone is blackmailing her, and that is like the scene from the trailer of her burning the book that happens in episode 1. So in episode 2, I'm doing a quick recap of each episode, and I realize that this video is all over the place because I am all over the place. Okay, moving on to episode 2. The very last scene of episode 2 is the scene that really broke my heart. So saddening, and like I was filled with anger and sadness when her husband Robert is showing Catherine her own photos of her own assault. That like really got to me, because when you first watch it, you're like, he's showing her the evidence of her cheating, and the fact that he doesn't listen to her. That's what something that you pick up more if you didn't pick up on it the first watch, that he does not listen to her. He does not give her a chance to talk. He is so sure that she cheated on him. He is so sure that Catherine is a horrible person, and he doesn't care about what she has to say or think. When she says in the scene of well, actually, I am the victim, he does not take her side. He does not consider that is a possibility. And I really appreciated that, because I read the book, and the dialogue that they use is pretty much the exact same, and it was perfectly written. Like the way Phineas scored it, like the lighting, like everything in this scene is perfect. I am absolutely in love with it. Like great acting. In episode 3, I would literally just to summarize it, everyone just hates Catherine. The audience hates Catherine, the characters hate Catherine because Catherine cheated, like upon first watch, you know, she's a horrible person, and no one really cares about what she has to say or think. I would say this is also the episode where Catherine tries to get more in touch with Stephen Brigstock and get him to stop stalking her and her family. But you're not made to think that. You're made to think that like this older guy is just trying to like figure out his grief, and he's just filled with sadness and grief. Is Yeah, I'm explaining this terribly, but yeah, thank you for watching. Episode 4 to me is a continuation of how Nancy perceived these events that happened to her son Jonathan and therefore happened to Catherine. So it is from like Nancy's perspective and like what Stephen believes. Two other important things that happen in this episode is that we see more of Stephen and Nancy's grief and how much they loved their son, specifically Nancy, how destroyed and how this like changed their lives. Like obviously changed their lives, okay? And then another thing that I think what is important is that Robert kicks Catherine out of the house because he is just so disgusted by her. He like absolutely hates her. And because to him, Catherine cheated on him with their son in the same room. Catherine doesn't care, and that Catherine is a horrible mother, and that plays out. And she even said that in episode 2. But she is a horrible mother. She's a shit mother. Because of this thing, I bet there is distance built there, and there's always been distance, and so now he has a reason. Now he's able to fill in the blanks for why she's been acting the way she's acted, why she doesn't want to have sex with him, why she always has migraines, why she couldn't be intimate, and why they grew apart distant. And it's because she cheated on him. At least that's what the show wants you to believe, and that is what Robert believes. And it's basically, you see them more on the beach and how he was being creepy to her, and how his fantasy of her, how he infantilized her and wanted the end goal or result to be ending up in her hotel room, because it, of course, her son couldn't be the perpetrator, her son couldn't be the bad guy, he got murdered from her perspective. And so it's interesting seeing these different perspectives play out in the show. Another 2 points that were important in this episode is that Stephen is still stalking Catherine. I'm gonna say that like regard, like no matter what perspective, he is just stalking this lady. And that is wrong. And then the next thing that I would say is that is impactful in this episode is that you see the incident of what really happened to Nicholas. So basically what happened to Nick is Catherine fell asleep on the beach, and Nicholas swam out to sea too far. He was unable to swim back, and so Jonathan swims out to and gets him, but the kid is saved, Nicholas is saved, but Jonathan was too far out and no one really noticed him or cared, and so no one got him, and so he died at shore. In episode 5 and episode 6, Catherine does show up to Stephen's house and tries to confront him to be like, please stop stalking me, please. He doesn't want to listen to that because she is a horrible person still. But in episode 6, she breaks into his house and is basically like demanding that he listened to her. Also, a big part of what happens in episode 5 and 6 is that Nicholas ODs on drugs that was given to him, or that was pressured into him by Stephen by reading this book and by seeing the photographs. Stephen like catfishes Nicholas, and a lot of the episode is spent with Catherine and Robert taking turns watching Nicholas in the hospital. And apparently in the script, it was like a 30-page monologue of her talking with some voiceover work. Episode 7 is like the climax of the show, duh, but it's so well done. I applaud Alfonso's, like, it's gorgeous. And you are basically just listening to her side of the story, because throughout the entirety of the show, you haven't really heard what she believes and what happened from her own voice. You're hearing it from literally everyone else but her. And so episode 7 details how her assault, and like she's never told anyone. She's only telling Stephen because he put her in a corner. And in the book, Stephen says like he felt terrible because it felt like he had been assaulting her all over again, because like I know it was Jonathan, but that he was assaulting her because he made her talk about this topic that she never wanted to talk about, that was only brought up because of him. Um, and so basically at the end, they changed the ending in the show. Okay, I'm gonna calm down for a minute. So in the show, um, but Stephen basically drugs Catherine with some tea. She goes to the hospital or whatever, and she thinks her son died. Her son did not die. Her son is okay. Everyone's okay. And Stephen tells her husband that, um, like the truth. And then they kind of close out. Catherine and her son work out their thing, and Robert and Catherine separate. The beautiful lines in the show, which I will, if I know how to edit, I will put it somewhere, is basically talking about how Catherine didn't feel like she could trust him with the truth. We're talking about the assault like years ago. And that he was much more willing to be comfortable and okay with the fact that someone had violated her rather than the idea of her finding pleasure in someone. And that really sat deep with me because it really did tackle and talk about a topic that is so deep and difficult to talk about, but that why why giving a reason out of many reasons why women may not want to talk about their sexual assault or anything with their husband because of that fear. Welcome to part 2 of this video, where I'm going to be talking about the differences between the book and the show. The first difference is in chapter 15 of the book. They are more direct and they give more like detail, obviously because it's a book. They give more detail about like what they mean by the PEDO allegations of Stephen Brigstock. Um, and it's basically just like that he's a teacher, and because of how we of how people are perceiving his grief and how he is with his students. There's those allegations are false, but they explain that better. Because in the show, it's a little bit like they don't really explain it that well, which is like fair and fine. But the book does give more context into that. The next difference is that in chapter 18, I don't think they did this in the show, is that Catherine wrote a book review of Stephen's book or of Nancy's book, and they like talked on the chat for a little bit. In the show, I don't think they did that. In chapter 23, this really isn't a difference, but it's an observation, is that they kept the same dialogue for the table scene between Catherine and Robert. That is depicted in episode 2, where he is basically accusing her of cheating, and that it's like I already talked about it, but it's my favorite scene. It's such a good scene. The next difference, or I guess scene, where I noticed they gave a lot more detail to is in chapter 42. They talk about how Nicholas got out onto the water more, and that scene is expanded. Like Catherine has a couple conversations with people on the beach, and there's more people there. Like there are people that are seen in the show, but it's very like it's quiet and it's voiceovered. So that is one slight difference. One of the big differences between the show and the book is how the show and the book are end. In the show, basically Stephen drugs Catherine. Catherine goes to the hospital to go see her son Nicholas, and she thinks that Stephen like killed unalived Nicholas, and that's not what happened. And they make up, and like yeah, you so like go watch the show. In the book, if you want me to explain them more, I will, okay? But in the book, he doesn't drug Catherine with the tea. Basically, she just leaves on her own accord. And then Stephen is basically processing all this information, and he goes through like, don't believe this, I don't believe this, but then he does believe it because he has no reason not to believe Catherine. And so he goes to Jonathan's grave, and he puts like crap all over it, and he feels disgusted with himself and disgusted with his son and his son's behavior. And that was really a cathartic scene for Stephen. And I like that the book gave more like attention, I guess, to Stephen, and allowed Stephen to have the feelings that he was feeling. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I feel like in this show, Stephen got a better ending, or a more fuller ending to his storyline. And so basically Stephen is questioning like if he should have even read Nancy's book or published it, and questioning all his decisions. He thinks he's a horrible person. And so he sends Catherine a letter, and he gives Catherine his properties to sell. He burns all of his things, and Jonathan's things and his things, and he does unalive himself at the end of the book, and he sends the letter to Catherine. Um, One of the things that is clarified in this chapter, in chapter 52, I believe, is that the photographs. So the photographs that were misconstrued and confusing, as the show said, as Catherine said, is that he looks through the photos, and in the show they do a close-up of of one of the photographs, and I had no idea why they were doing this. I did not understand it until I read the book, and maybe I just missed something, but I did not get it until I read the book. And so in the photograph it is explicitly said that in the photograph there was a little faint outline of like a little boy or of a figure, and Catherine knew that that was Nicholas, and that Stephen knew that that must have been her child in it. And so the show, in my opinion, never like explicitly states that Nicholas saw what had happened to his mother, but in the book it is explicitly stated that he must have seen it. He saw it, and he just, his little kid brain just forgot that it happened or had internalized it differently. Because when Catherine asks him, and that is like a big scene kind of in the show, is if she should have told her son, if she should have like asked her son. And when she does, he doesn't remember anything. He feels bad that had happened, and they try to repair their relationship. In the show, it's like a quick little scene with some voiceover of them stating that they're gonna work on their relationship. So to me, that was like one of the biggest differences, and I really did like, as much as I didn't like Steven, I felt sad that he did unalive himself, but I did like that, even if they didn't want to include that in the show, that they did like give him a fuller ending, and ended out his story and Nancy's story, because I felt their story was so unique in how they grieve the loss of their son. This and the burning of the photos happens, I think, in chapter 52 and in chapter 57. They referenced it a couple times, just in case if you are wanting to read the book. We have now made it to part 3 of the video, where I'm gonna just do like an analysis and like my thoughts, and continue to stand Cate Blanchett, because I love Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett, I know you will never see this, but I love you. I have a poster of you. Okay, moving on. So I think this is a beautiful show, and a beautiful show that really teaches you about perspective and cinematic storytelling and perspective. And I'll put the quotes somewhere on the screen, but it talked about how she did, one of the reasons why she didn't feel like she could tell Robert was because she wanted to control her grief and her rage. And that was beautiful. That stuck with me, because it makes a lot of sense in that no one gave her the opportunity to talk, to share what happened, to voice what happened. The only person that did that was her mother. And she couldn't do that for years because she felt so much shame and guilt. And because the perpetrator of this crime died, she truly believed and wanted to put it away. She didn't want Nicholas to go through a trial. She didn't want to put herself through that. She didn't want people to accuse her of lying, to accuse her of anything, of what happened to her. And I thought that just made me really sad for her, honestly. I think the show did a really good job of exploring how people can deal with traumatic experiences and how they live with those traumatic experiences, and how people's point of view can be wrong, or how you can have a different point of view based on what has happened to you. Like Nancy, she didn't know that he had assaulted someone. She just knew that her son died. I think that the thesis of the show, or at least one of them, is those last lines spoken by Robert and Catherine of how men, or at least in this instance, how Robert rather wanted her to be violated. He was handling that much better than her having pleasure, or her having an affair or anything like that. Like, in how there's many different reasons why women might not want to share their experience with their partners or with anyone, and the amount of shame that can cause, and that she felt. They did an incredible job at not wanting it to seem like they're faking you out, or that they wanted it to be like forced. It was very organic, and that was something that and if you watch any of the interviews, they wanted that to be very intentional. And Cate Blanchett spoke about how she's an executive producer on the show, and like she was very heavily involved in the little details of making sure that when you first watched it, it was innate that you felt that she had cheated, that she was a horrible person, that she was a dislikable person. And then when you watch it again, that all of your opinions are going to change. And that was very intentional, but they didn't want it to be like forced, like, haha, we got the audience. They wanted you to truly have like a brain changing moment. Um, and I think they did an incredible job at that. And I also love that Denise O'Connell did did the scoring for it. I thought it was really well done. Like the sound design was pretty awesome. I know that some people were complaining that in episode 1 it was a little bit odd. I'm not an expert at it, but I definitely saw the detail and the level of detail that was put into the show, including the sound design and cinematography. Very easy to use sexual violence and sexual assault in a way that is inauthentic to the character or as a storyboard plot to further someone else's plot or of a character's plot. There's a video on YouTube. If I can, I'll link it below, talking about the 3 main reasons why sexual assault, particularly RAPE, is used in movies and television. And I think the show did a really good job of expanding on that and talking about the actual trauma that it can have and lasting impact that this event can have on someone's life. And I can just praise this show literally forever, and I'll probably keep saying the same things over and over again. But truly, I think this show deserves the Emmy nominations. It deserves the awards. I hope that Alfonso does more film work before. I thought it was really interesting that when he was showing this at festival, he presented this television show at festivals, and he did part 1 and part 2. So like the first 3 episodes, I think, and then the last 4 episodes were together. And that is a really interesting choice. And I hope that he continues to make television, because it really did feel like just a really long film, not like a limited series. So yeah, thank you for watching. I may or may not make more videos about this topics, particularly disclaimer, because I'm obsessed. I'm a big Cate Blanchett stan. But I will probably post those on TikTok. But yeah, thank you. Bye. So the first time you are viewing this show, you are meant to hate Catherine Ravenscraft. You are made to believe that she is a horrible person that either unalived this couple's child or cheated on her husband or like anything in between.